Welcome to CC Writes. My name is CC Lepke, and today I'm going to get your writing out of a bad mood. You wrote a dark story. Maybe it's a tragedy and you rain down fire and brimstone on your character. For some reason, despite your interesting concept and well-executed plot, your readers couldn't get past the first couple of chapters. Or maybe you wrote a story with humor and hope, but your readers found it boring. Does it mean you're a terrible writer? Should you just give up? Not necessarily. You could be suffering from a problem that a lot of newer writers face. Your story lacks value. When I say that your story lacks value, I'm not saying that your writing is worthless. What I'm saying is that your story might lack the ebb and flow of light and dark elements that bring depth and variety to your writing. Without value, your writing is like a landscape painted all in black. There's nothing of note to see. There's a fun fact that I really love about Batman, the new animated series. Apparently, the show was drawn entirely on black paper. They wanted the darkest part of the art to remain perfectly black. So they chose a dark canvas for the story and they painted on the lighter values on top of it. My point is that really dark or really light artwork needs counterpoints of opposite or even just medium values. That way the image can be discerned more easily. If the artists of Batman used only dark colors on top of their already dark canvas, the audience would be hard put to understand what was actually going on the screen. In real life, even among a long stint of darkness, we still experience small moments of happiness. The day of my grandpup's passing was marked by grief and anger, but it also had moments of family unity and joy. We told happy stories about our memories with him. We cried when he fell asleep for the last time, and we simply experienced the moment as we came together as a disjointed family for the sake of the man that we all loved dearly. Some of my happiest moments were born out of sadness. I remember my mom giving me a hot bath when I was little and I got upset over something. She wrapped me in towels and blankets that were fresh out of the dryer to keep me warm, and gave me hot chocolate to help me feel better. She would let me stay home from school and we'd watch old television shows together. To this day, I still wrap myself in blankets and drink hot chocolate when I'm feeling down because it reminds me of the comfort that she brought me in those dark moments. I don't remember why I was sad back then. All I remember is the light that she gave me to find my way out of the dark. In these ways, writing should mimic real life as much as possible. And I hear you doubters saying that you write fantasy and that's not supposed to be real life. To you, I say, silence. You're being pedantic and you know it. The emotions that we have and the struggles that we experience, whether in real life or in fantasy, are always based around the same things. People's needs are all basically the same, regardless of whether you live in Houston or Hyrule. We want safety, comfort, a roof over our heads, a community to be a part of, and a sense of meaning in the world. Because we seek the same things, we all feel the same things too. It's almost like human suffering is a universal theme. Weird. Practicing value in art can turn a flat image into a 3D object. Similarly, value in writing gives true dimension to your work. It will make your characters and the world they inhabit feel true to your readers. The human brain, when pressed to make a quick decision, defaults to emotion rather than logic. And this happens whether you're a primarily logical thinker or not. Unless you are actually a robot, you probably think with your heart first and your mind second. Therefore, if you leave the value of emotion out of your writing, then your story will lack the basic element of humanity that makes it possible for your readers to understand and connect with your story on a fundamental level. If you want your story to be a real boy, it has to feel real things. I love using Pinocchio as an example. Since emotional value is so important to our work, we really need to grasp how to alter the value of our stories. If value is mood, then you should understand how to best represent each mood in your writing. If you've ever watched a scary movie, you're probably familiar with the concept of a jump scare. The music becomes intense. The lighting gets dim or desaturated as the camera focuses more heavily on the main character, breathing heavily as they search the dark basement for the strange noise that they hear. And right as the tension is at its highest, something pops out of nowhere to scare the living daylights out of the main character and audience both. The worst part is that the jump scare doesn't actually have to be something scary. Sometimes the director uses the jump scare to tease the audience and shake them up a bit to subvert their expectations. The tension snaps and the audience is suddenly thrown back into a position of comfort. We can do the exact same thing in our writing. In movies, when the camera starts to slowly focus in on the character, it's equivalent to those times in writing where the character starts to think more internally as opposed to externally. In those moments, you focus less on the surrounding environment and more on what the character thinks, believes, and feels. Fear is an emotion that causes us to become selfish in our thoughts and actions. To convey the value of fear in your story, your character needs to experience things selfishly and focus only on preserving the self. Although an argument can be made that in some circumstances, a person's sense of self is expanded to include loved ones or even objects of importance. Love is an externally focused emotion. In love, we think about others above ourselves. Consider love languages, the ideology that people express love in different ways. People show how they love through words of affirmation, spending quality time with one another, physical touch, acts of service, and giving gifts. All of these love languages are focused on dialogue and action performed in specific ways. To convey love in a story, your character's focus is going to be on another person and on the things they say and do for that other person. Happiness and satisfaction is the most heavily outward-focused emotion. When we're happy, we take in everything around us and perceive it in a rosy light. Even on a rainy day, if you're happy, then you'll jump in puddles and laugh like a child. You'll stand with your face upturned to the sky and your eyes closed, breathing in life as it is right now. We use more positive language when we speak, perceive the world in a positive way, and generally feel more fulfilled. Try to delve deep into every emotion so that you can try to understand what they do to us psychologically, how they affect us physically, and how they make us behave. Remember that these emotions exist on a scale of value, with more positive emotions bringing light and more negative emotions bringing darkness. Medium value emotions are contentment, satisfaction, and comfort. Light value emotions can be happiness, excitement, and love. Dark value emotions are hatred, grief, and fear. It's kind of like the Force. You can also affect the value based on the intensity with which your characters experience emotions. Low-level happiness or sadness is only going to be slightly different from the level of comfort in your writing. Knowing this can allow you to change the value of your story more subtly if you need to. In the practice of using value, remember that a good story needs to ebb and flow emotionally to keep the reader engaged and release the tension of especially good or bad moments. Changing the value slowly over time can convey a feeling of transformation for your characters. A sudden, stark change in value can shock or surprise your readers, or it can give contrast between people, places, things, or ideas. Value can even be used to convey subtext in a story. Think about how the nobility in your favorite Victorian drama give backhanded compliments to subtly insult their enemies. Subtext in the right circumstance means everything, and intention is key when it comes to writing. You You should always have an idea of what specifically you want to convey so that you can figure out the best way to represent it. If you aren't sure where to begin with putting value into your work, check out my previous video about emotional storytelling, where I talk about including the 7 stages of grief into your story and give a guide on how emotions should change over time. However, the 7 stages of grief in your story is large-scale thinking. You can also make the value of your story change from paragraph to paragraph to give your story more variety. You should make sure that you refrain from constantly changing the value of your story, though. You're adding variety through mood, but people need time to process mood. If you change direction too quickly, too often, you risk giving your readers whiplash. I'll go into this a little bit more in the next video about space, but for now, remember that your writing and your readers need time to process what's happening. You should get a good idea of how professionals use value throughout their writing. And to do this, you will want to redline a story. Just like I've said in all the previous videos in this series, redlining is the process of breaking down somebody else's work so you can see the underlying structure. To redline for value, you can pick highlighter colors that represent different values, or use markers in varying shades of gray to color paragraphs in your favorite work based on the level of value conveyed. Make sure to take notes about what mood is conveyed, or if there's a switch of mood or a transitory phrase used within the paragraph. Once you've marked up a full chapter, take a look at the value as a whole to see how the value in the chapter changed over time. If you want to practice writing value on your own, I recommend writing a paragraph and making the value of that paragraph light. Then write the exact same paragraph, but this time try to make it medium in value. Finally, write the same paragraph in a dark way. You can also try writing a 1,000-word story. First, write the story starting off at a light value, and as each paragraph goes on, let it darken just a little bit more to the end. Then write the same story, but this time start out at a dark value and then increase the value to lightness over time. Finally, write the same story, but vary the dark and light values. Finally, read each story and take note of how it changed between each version and why. I've said it before, but your writing is going to improve significantly the better you understand the fundamentals of writing prose. Lines form the building blocks of your prose. Shape guides how it should be read, and value brings depth. Next time, we'll talk about how to include space in your writing to set the perfect pace for your story. I hope you got a lot out of today's lesson on how and when to fluctuate the mood of your writing to add emotional value to your work. If you missed out on my previous videos in this series, click the top link and it will take you back to the beginning. Otherwise, click on the bottom link to see what YouTube recommends. As always, thanks for watching CC Writes. I hope you enjoyed our time together, and I will see